Good morning, everyone. Good Sunday morning to you who is joining us right now. We already see that some people are joining, so we are very, very excited to be here today. It is a beautiful day here in Miami, and we hope that it is a beautiful day or afternoon or night, wherever you may be when you start following this live feed. We have today a very great topic that is going to be presented by our friend David Walkden. Some of you may know him. He is the one who leads our Gospel According to Spiritism study group on Sunday mornings, every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. And he is also partaking in the study group as a moderator of the Missionaries of the Light, which happens every other Wednesday at 7:15 p.m. He joins us this morning with a topic called Building Blocks for a Meaningful Life. But before we present David and his presentation, as always, we do an opening reading of a book. Today we chose the book Our Daily Bread, which is psychographed by Francisco Cândido Xavier, and through the Spirit Emmanuel. And the message is number 113. It's called Your Faith. We'd like to point out that these books that we usually present here, the Gospel According to Spiritism, the Spirit's book, Our Daily Bread, and many other titles are available on Apple iTunes and also on the Kindle version. Since we are not physically present at the center, you can still get these books and read them in your own home. But the message is Your Faith, number 113. And it goes like this. Then he said to her, "Daughter, be of good cheer. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." This is found in Luke chapter 8, verse 48. It is important to notice that after having dispensed beneficial assistance, the Divine Master always referred to the wonder of faith, the sublime heritage of those who seek him. On many occasions, we hear his expressive affirmation, "Your faith has saved you." After experiencing relief or healing, the infirm in body and soul hear that generous pronouncement. This is because human will and trust are powerful factors in the development and illumination of life. Navigators who have no route to follow and who have nothing to trust in will only reach the port because random forces are on their side. They are completely unaware of what might happen to them. Patients who are skeptical about the effectiveness of all medications are the first to work against their own well-being. Those who are disenchanted with everything do not expect anything to be useful. Empty souls clamor in vain for the share of happiness they think the world owes them. The state of denial in which they wander transforms their lives into deadened zones that resemble electric insulators. The life-giving current may pass through them, but they remain insensitive. Amid the enterprises and needs of your pathway, do not insulate yourself in activity. Jesus can overcome anything, and your true friends will do everything possible for you. However, neither the Master nor your friends can provide you fully with the happiness you seek without the aid of your faith, because you are also a child of the same God and have the same potential for spiritual growth. This message is absolutely beautiful, and it talks to us about the importance of developing, of strengthening, and keeping the faith alive deep within our soul. We find here that we truly have the power many times on the occurrences of our lives and the potential to transform it in such a way that is meaningful to us. On this note, we are going to invite you to do our prayer with us, and you can keep your eyes open or closed, it's your choice, but definitely keep your heart open and your mind as well. Dear Jesus and Father above, benevolent spirits who are with us at this moment, blessing us and guiding us, we are truly grateful for this morning where we are able to sit in the comfort of our home and review and talk about and listen about your gospel, about the good news. We are grateful for the message that we have received, empowering us towards our own life's occurrences, the pathway that will lead us to you. We ask your blessing, especially this morning, for our friend David, who took his time to bring to us the findings of his own reflections related to the topic that will be presented. And we ask your blessing also for those who are listening at home right now, our conscious living family and friends who are in tune, who are connected. May they feel the current of energies flowing freely and abundantly of love surrounding them and strengthening them for their own journey in their own spiritual pathway. On this note, we give thanks to you always. So be it. Very well. Good morning, Carlos. Good morning, Marcelo Paiva. So here we have our friend David today. As a reminder, David is ready. He's going to be doing a beautiful presentation. And if time permits and allows us, he might actually answer some of your questions after his live. You can go ahead and write them on the chat, and we will be receiving them as we go along. So David, welcome to our live. Have a great live presentation.
Well, thank you, Andrea, and thank you, Conscious Living, for giving me the opportunity to talk with everyone today. As always, it's a privilege and a pleasure. But also, from a little selfish point of view, it gives me the opportunity to challenge and delve a bit deeper into the Spiritist teachings, which I really enjoy so much. It's only been about a year since we last met physically at the centre, but it really feels like an eternity. I'm sure all of our conscious living brothers and sisters watching, and particularly those who used to attend our Sunday morning meetings, miss not only the live talks and the question and answers afterwards, but also the friendship and support that the Spiritist Centre provides. Hopefully with this vaccine rollout, we're beginning to see a light at the end of the tunnel, and again, hopefully in the not too distant future, we can be physically together again. This pandemic has brought so much disruption and chaos to the social and economic order that the repercussions are going to be felt for, I think, many years to come. I confess for my wife Fatima and myself, COVID-19 has at the worst been just an inconvenience and really nothing compared to the hardship of so many, not just obviously here in the USA, but all over the world. Yes, we had to postpone a trip we'd planned to Brazil, missed going to concerts. I particularly missed, for a while, I'm back playing again with my son at racquetball every week. But considering all the suffering due to COVID, again, I feel guilty that my life has been so little affected. And in many ways, it's been a blessing because, with Fatima now working from home and both of us having more time to reflect on life and the many things we're so grateful for. But one benefit the pandemic has presented us with is the invitation to reflect on really what is more important in this material life, and the time to explore, learn, and gain a deeper understanding into what Spiritism can offer. And complementing this fact is the amount and the quality of learning materials about Spiritism that have really flourished and become more readily available, as Andrea said in our opening today. More of the books of Kardec and spirit mediums and writers are now available in PDF form and much more accessible. And apart from that, we have the podcast, the Zoom study groups, and all in English. So the title of my talk today is Building Blocks for a Meaningful Life. And following on, I got another confession to make. I did not create this topic, nor would I be so pretentious as to portray myself as an expert in the field of self-fulfillment, or to offer help to those listening to help you find a new purpose in life. The title actually derives from the Spiritist Federation of Florida 10th Annual Conference, which was originally scheduled for March last year, I think it was, but obviously postponed because of the pandemic. But it was actually subsequently realized last month, presented online, Unfortunately, only in Portuguese, but with an iconic cast of speakers, including our own Susana Simões and Alberto Almeida, and the amazing, of course, Divaldo Franco, amongst many others. And the theme of the conference was what Spiritism can do for you. Speaking personally and from my heart, Spiritism has brought so much more meaning and purpose in my life. So that is what I've used to inspire this talk today. And not being an expert, but what I can share with you is the joy and the benefits it's brought to me. And hopefully some of that will resonate. So in the opening talk of the conference by Alberto Almeida, I say roughly translated to the topic, my topic in English, building blocks for a meaningful life. And just as I earlier explained that my resume does not include the qualifications of a self-help guru, there's also no way I can even come close to the eloquence and insight that Alberto Almeida brings to the challenges of creating a meaningful life. So again, my objective is to share with you my reflections of my journey along the Spiritist path, how it has impacted my life and how it plays such a guiding light in my daily thoughts and actions. And in preparation for this talk, and by stepping back and examining some of the basic concepts of the Spiritist doctrine, it has reinforced my core beliefs and the realization of the contribution it is really making my life more meaningful. I sincerely hope that my reflections will invite everyone listening to also step back and to analyze just what part Spiritism plays in your own life, and more importantly, why. Whether you were born into a Spiritist family, have stumbled across the doctrine on your life journey, like I had 10 years ago, or know little or even nothing about the teachings, my hope is that some element of this talk will resonate with you and make your life a little more meaningful, however small the increments. Whoops, there we go. But for those of the audience who have a broad knowledge of Spiritism, I believe there's an additional benefit, right, returning to the core principles of the doctrine. So often when we study the subject at great length, it can almost hinder our ability to see the whole picture. In other words, we can't see the wood for the trees. We can encounter difficulties in explaining the how and why we believe to others. Now, obviously, first and foremost in attracting our family and friends, or indeed anyone we meet, to the concept of Spiritism is through our actions. By constantly demonstrating good virtues, be it kindness, compassion, tolerance, patience, and above all, love, we attract like-minded souls, and more equally important, those who have no knowledge but want to better themselves. I think we all have an obligation to serve, and by aiming to embrace the teaching of Jesus in our every action. Again, returning to the theme of the 10th Annual Spiritist Confederation Conference, the theme was what Spiritism can do for you. And it reminds me of what J.F. Kennedy said in his inauguration address 70 years ago. You should just not ask what Spiritism can do for you, but what you can do for Spiritism. When our good actions prompt an observer to inquire about our belief system, we also need to be able to articulate the basic principles of the doctrine in order to stimulate further interest. Again, we have to recognize that Spiritism cannot be taught as such, but needs to be studied. The intent must come from inside. All we can do is, and must do, is to guide that interest on the best path. Again, by examining Spiritism's core principles, we can optimize the learning process, especially as we help others along the path. So I want to go back a little bit to the start of the Spiritist revelations, and it can be traced back perhaps even to the Fox sisters in Hydesville, New York, back in 1848. 3 young girls were able to attract unexplained noises and raps, and later set up a rudimentary form of communication. And similar phenomena subsequently spread to Europe, and particularly France, where seances became the vogue, initially as a form of entertainment, but as more intellectuals became interested, the form and quality of the communications improved. But what I always find it fascinating is to reflect on why the Spirits chose that era of time to divulge this new revelation. And we can go talk a little bit about all the different aspects and happenings at that time. but it was obviously planned, and it's still ongoing. It was seen that the high order spirits felt that humankind was at that time sufficiently evolved and ready to be guided to the next level. And of course, one such intellect was our dear friend Hippolyte Léon Denisard-Rivet, excuse my French accent, or lack of, later be known by the pen name of Allan Kardec, who initially approached the communication with total skepticism. However, after extended and detailed studies, he concluded the communications were genuine and furthermore were made by intelligent but invisible sources. He was so convinced that in the early 1850s, he commented to his wife, who was tremendous support for him during this whole time of his work. And I'm going to quote here, it comes from the introduction of the Spirits book. He said to his wife, Emily, "It's a most curious thing. My conversations with the invisible intelligences have completely revolutionized my ideas and convictions. The instruction thus transmitted constitutes an entirely new theory of human life, duty, and destiny, which appears to me to be perfectly rational and coherent, admirably lucid and consoling, and intensely interesting. I have a great mind to publish these conversations in a book, for it seems to me that what interests me so deeply might highly likely prove interesting to others as well." Well, I think it's proved interesting to all of us, and me in particular. So from that moment on, Kardec, he dedicated the rest of his life to study and dissemination of the Spiritist doctrine, and his legacy continues to be the foundation and the must-go-to starting point for anyone interested in further study. So he published the first edition of the Spirits book in 1857, but he had a limited printing of about, I believe, 1,200 copies and financed from his own limited resources, which quickly sold out. It actually only contained 500 questions and answers. And I think it's interesting to reflect why he did that, why he published the book in this early form. And I think there's two reasons. First, I think he was sensitive to the kind of controversial nature of the principles and concept, and recognized the opposition it would receive from the establishment at the time, both church and state. So he opted for a gradual dissemination because of that, I think. But secondly, and I think this is perhaps more important, he realized that the task he had ahead of him was so enormous. And he wanted to expand the reach and the depth of the work he needed. And he needed more time and input from similar-minded intellects working independently with qualified mediums in various locations in France and beyond. So he worked tirelessly over the next 3 years, collecting, organizing, consolidating the data before publishing the final edition that we read now with 1,019 questions and answers, and that was published in 1860. The front cover of the Spirits book gives us a first insight as to the key principles of Spiritism, when Kardec premises the title with the words, "A spiritualist philosophy." And then he adds, containing the principles of the Spiritist doctrine concerning the immortality of the soul, the nature of spirits, their relations with humankind, moral laws, the present life, the future life, and the destiny of humanity, according to the teachings given by highly evolved spirits through several mediums. And that really sums up what the Spirits book is all about. And over the next 10 years, Kardec worked tirelessly to build on these principles with four additional books. In the same year, he published that last edition of the Spirits book. He released the final version. He released the Medium's book. And basically, the Medium's book is an expansion of part 2 of the Spirits book, The World of Spirits. And then subsequently, he gave us a much more complete analysis of part 3, the moral laws. And that, of course, was the book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. And to further explain the last part 4, which in the Spirits book was hopes and consolation, he assembled multiple testimonies from spirits at various levels of moral evolvement, providing practical examples of how behavior in the incarnate world directly impacts the consequential experience in the spirit life. And that was the book, of course, Heaven and Hell. And then finally, he, in his last book, which is my particular favorite, Genesis, Miracles and Predictions, published in 1869, which was, in fact, the last year of his life on this plane. Kardec revisits part one of the Spirit's book, First Causes, gives a deeper understanding and analysis of the scientific aspects of the doctrine. So, what is Spiritism? Now, it is often said that the building blocks of Spiritism are threefold: science, philosophy, and religion. For me, it certainly is a science. The study involves a detailed analysis of information collected through mediums, verified, organized, cross-referenced in a rational and objective manner. And it's certainly philosophical. It provides the answers to those existential questions of why we're here, where are we going, what happens after we die. However, for me, the third building block, religion, needs further qualification, because religion is a word that's been, I would say, misused, perhaps even corrupted over the centuries. Go back to the origin of the word religion. It comes from the Latin word ligare, which just means to join, to link. And that's classically understood to mean a linking of human and the divine. But if you go further, and I've gone to the Merriam-Webster dictionary here, the word religion is defined as a social, cultural system of designated behaviors and practices, morals, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, or organizations that relate humanity to the supernatural, transcendental, and spiritual elements. And in Wikipedia, you can go even further, where they state in Wikipedia, there's really no scholarly consensus what constitutes a religion. Furthermore, I estimate there's over 10,000 distinct religions worldwide. Different religions may or may not contain various elements ranging from the divine or faith or supernatural being or transcendence. And then we have the religious practices. They may include rituals, sermons, festivals, trances, prayer, worship, meditation, music, public service, and many other aspects of human culture. So based on this, I personally feel it is misleading to label Spiritism as a religion, because I think it detracts from its more important scientific and philosophical aspects. So again, what is Spiritism? Although the work of Kardec still remains today as the foundation and starting point of any study, I think it's fair to say that during those almost 20 years that Kardec worked on developing the doctrine, it really was a period of exploration and discovery. The good news is, following Kardec's discarnation, the high order spirits have prepared our dear friend Leon Denis to give continuity to the work. Whereas Kardec was the codifier of Spiritism, Leon Denis was the consolidator and took the doctrine to the next level. He was instrumental in facilitating numerous Spiritist centers, or the development of Spiritist centers in France and later Europe, and for making the doctrine more accessible to the masses through his elegant books, publications, basically his books, beautiful books, and bring it much clearer and more in a language that can reach the public in general. Sadly, the first half of the 20th century was a dark time for humankind, with much conflict, culminating in 2 world wars, and overshadowing really only little further development of the Spiritist doctrine. However, in the middle of the last century, Spiritism re-emerged, this time in Brazil, particularly through the mediumship of Chico Xavier. I call him Xavier. Andre calls him Javier, I believe, and the channeling of the spirits Emmanuel and Andre Luis. And many other mediums and evolved spirits brought us more knowledge and deeper understanding. Even today, the truly amazing medium Divaldo Franco, who will be, I believe, 94 next month, continues to bring us further insights, particularly through the teachings of the spirits Joana de Angelis and Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, amongst others. So today we have available well over in excess of 100 books in English, as Andre was saying, also in digital form. So we can study individually or collectively and expand our knowledge. Also, there now exist Spiritist groups throughout the world, all interconnected and working together to further the cause. So again, what is Spiritism today? When people ask me to explain what is Spiritism, I like to define it as a body of knowledge based on scientific study and reasoning, providing answers to those existential questions of life, and connecting oneself with the spark of spirituality we all have within us. And I think that really sums it up very well. Again, the body of knowledge based on scientific study, reasoning, existential questions of life, answers those, and then it connects us to the divine that we all have within us. So really, Spiritism is based on 5 building blocks of principles, and I'm going to acknowledge the short but beautiful video of Andrea and Marcelo about what is Spiritism, available on the website, on YouTube, but summarizing 5 principles of 1, the existence of God, the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things, infinitely just and good. And I think we all have our own interpretation of God. Today we had a very lively conversation in our gospel class where we're on the last chapter and we're talking about the Lord's Prayer. And we actually only really discussed Our Father which art in heaven, because the conversation went so long and so interesting with exchange of views and points of views. We all have our own vision of God, how we see God, but that's the basic principle. There is some supreme intelligence. Of course, the second and very important building block of Spiritism is the immortality of the soul. We're all immortal beings having a material experience rather than a material body with a spirit. We're all immortal beings having a material experience, and upon discarnation, that is the death of our physical bodies, our soul lives on. And that gives us to plurality of existences through reincarnation. And this, to me, this is the core of Spiritism. This leads to so much more explanation of what happens on this material plane. We've all had many existences where the sole purpose is spiritual progress and enlightenment, and we'll still have many more to come. So apart from the plurality of existences, we have the plurality of worlds. Earth is our home for now, but there are many worlds which we will inhabit one day as we progress on our spiritual journey. And then last but not least, and perhaps also important, is communicability between spirits. We all attract spirits, both incarnate and discarnate, of similar aptitude and desires, and we can be guided or even misguided by them. So again, of these 5 building blocks, what stands out for me the most is not just the immortality of the soul and the process of reincarnation, but the purpose behind such a continuous process. Now, of course, many religions believe in the immortality of the soul, and after death we go to heaven or perhaps even that other place for eternity. Some religions do believe in reincarnation, but perhaps more often than not as a form of punishment. When I was first exposed to Spiritism, again, almost 10 years ago now, my scientific and reasoning mind kicked in, and I remained very skeptical. But as I began to explore the concept of reincarnation and spirit communication, I discovered increasing amounts of evidence, almost proof that validated these ideas. Conversely, in spite of all the tremendous progress made in humankind's scientific interpretation of the world around us, we're constantly discovering new frontiers which are inexplicable from our current theories and hypotheses. Again, the physics in me is coming out, the physicist in me is coming out, but science cannot explain, for instance, how galaxies are held together and that the centrifugal forces do not throw the individual rotating stars apart. So science comes up with this great hypothesis saying, oh, there's another component of matter. We can't see it, we can't detect it, but we'll call it dark matter, but we know it's there. It's gluing the stars together. And then similarly, it's been determined that the universe is not only expanding, but expanding at an ever-increasing rate. Again, the best science can do is to explain this observation, is to propose a new form of energy, again, undetectable with our current technologies, but actually, and perhaps unimaginatively, called dark energy. So, despite all these hundreds of years of scientific research and advancement, with our ever more sophisticated technologies, today's science can only explain 5% of the matter contained in all the stars of the known universe, and the other 95% remains literally in the dark. And what I find paradoxical is some of the top scientific minds dismiss any idea of any spiritual component. And two of the people I really like listening to, one is Lawrence Krauss. He's a renowned physicist and cosmologist, written many books, brilliant books, that really bring science to a level and a language that can be explained to non-scientists. But he he just dismisses any idea of, and in fact ridicules any notion of any spiritual dimension to humanity. Lawrence Krauss is often joined by Richard Dawkins, another eminent biologist and evolutionarist, and together they can argue the exclusive domain of science, vehemently dismissing any spiritual or paranormal component. Now, on the other hand, unfortunately, there are some scientific disciplines, such as medicine, genetics, that are becoming increasingly aware and open to the important consideration of the spiritual component. Certainly this week, I was reminded of this concept a few days ago during our study of the Missionary of the Light, and by the spirit and doctor in his past life, André Louise, channeled through the medium Chico Xavier. And in chapter 10 of the book, he states, and I quote him, "Many times when enveloped in flesh, we are unable to conduct intellectual research." And he puts that in parentheses, to which his spiritual mentor, Alexander, confirms, that's exactly right. If scientific investigation were accompanied by true sentiment, character, and conscience, the accomplishments would be different, because the light of spirituality would be illuminating the way. We are always beset by demands full of pretense, and thus failures are unavoidable, end quote. So that's it. I think, we need to be more open, and as scientists, we need to acknowledge the things we don't know and open up to ideas that are completely contrary to our understanding of the material world. But going back, when I said that when I started my study of Spiritism and I was so skeptical, I started to investigate. And I decided to summarize some of the elements that I find where there is more concrete scientific evidence that supports the existence of the immortal spirit and the spiritual world around us. And the first one is, past life memories in young children. This work started with Ian Stevenson maybe 40 years ago now, and is now continued on with Jim Tucker, is Dr. Jim Tucker, who continued the work at the University of Virginia. And they've amassed over 40 years so many documenting cases of memories of young children, the memories from their past lives, and cross-reference. Even some of the children had scars that were obviously captured by the perispirit and reappeared in the new life. Very, very convincing and very scientific in its analysis. Now, why do children still remember? There's this theories about that. Why does it disappear when they were 6 or 7? We're still learning. But even after the age of 7, some memories can be deep in the perispirit, deep in the psyche, and they can be resurfaced through regression. And I know John, who I hope is watching today, John Raphael, he talks a lot about Brian Weiss and his books and his works and how he's developed a technique that is now an accepted practice in the field of therapy, psychotherapy. Another element is child prodigies. So many children are born today with amazing abilities. We've all seen, I think, the videos of 4-year-old Chinese children who have never been exposed to music playing Mozart beautifully. How can you explain that? There's no other way than it comes with the perispirit from a past life. Another aspect, I think, is nature versus nurture. We have children born to the same parents, the same DNA pool, the same environmental and guidance from the parents, yet their personalities can be so different. Some can be very rebellious, others very loving, others have abilities in one field, others in another. Where does that come from, if only from past lives? And I think another area that is growing in reputation in the scientific community is near-death experiences. And, that also involves out-of-death, out-of-body experiences where people are really literally able to take their mind, their spirit out of the body and relate things that are happening in other rooms, in other places, which can be proven afterwards. But perhaps the most compelling component of what is proof or evidence for me, for spiritual, the immortality of the soul and spiritual life is mediumship. And of course, we go back to Chico with his 400 plus books, a person who has never really had any education, just unbelievable. And of course, Divaldo Franco and others. So Having been researched and firmly concluded that reincarnation and the existence of the spiritual world is a reality, how does it influence my perspective regarding this material life? How has this conclusion and my knowledge of Spiritism influenced my outlook on life and my behavior when I wake up each day? And, there are so many positive repercussions stemming from my understanding, albeit still limited, but thank goodness it's constantly growing, of the Spirit's teachings. It's difficult to know where to start. But in the short time I have remaining for this talk, I'd like to just highlight 6 areas. And the first is death and dying. Okay, we all know that we will one day face that, and my time is getting closer, like everyone else, but still some ways to go, hopefully. I've got so much to learn that I do hope I can carry on for a few years yet. But knowing that my spirit will live on, I find very consoling, shifting my attitude towards the inevitable death of my physical body to one of renewal and new opportunities to come. I don't look forward to leaving like anyone else, albeit temporary. Those who I love and like everyone, I have some understandable trepidations about the process of dying itself, the probable pain, suffering for myself and those around me. But I know the pain will be short-lived, especially when you consider the immortal spirit. Very short-lived, and the break in relationships will be temporary. And the spirit will provide me the opportunity to reunite with loved ones from the past. So death and dying is much less a darker unknown than it was in the past. Second, I think, building block that Spiritism has given me is this self-responsibility, knowing that I'm responsible for everything that I experience, and recognizing that every obstacle in life is an opportunity for growth. It can be a bit daunting. However, once we make that paradigm shift from blaming others or our bad luck and take ownership of all the events in life, it can be very reassuring and comforting to know that we have the solutions to life challenges and we are in control. The third element to me that Spiritism brings me is this aspect of material possessions. We all recognize that we need material things to make our physical life comfortable and fulfilling. But we often have difficulty in differentiating between that which is needed and that which is superfluous. We don't own anything, we are merely stewards whilst on the physical plane, and we certainly can't take anything material with us into our next life. So I'm constantly in the process of decluttering, freeing myself from stuff that no longer serves me. It's amazing how satisfying this cleansing process can be, especially if I can pass anything on to someone else who has a much greater need than I. According to Fatima, this process is going too slowly, but it's a process. Gratitude, recognizing, expressing thanks for all that we have in this physical life can be such a rewarding and soothing effect on one's psyche. It can take the form of reflection, meditation, prayer. In my own case, I find the connection with my garden and hence Mother Nature, for me, is an opportunity to express and feel the gratitude for life. Fifth element, service. We are here to serve and to play our part in the advancement, not only for ourselves, but all those around us, no matter how small our offering is. It's not enough to be charitable to those we encounter in our daily lives, although being compassionate, kind, and often just having the patience to listen goes a long way. In these days of COVID, when physical contact is restricted, we need to find more creative and proactive ways in order to help others. And finally, what Spiritism has taught me is that it's an opportunity to grow. Life is a school, and every lifetime is a new level, a new grade, and we hopefully we will never go backwards, but we can move faster or slower, depending on our attitude. So it's an opportunity to grow and to learn, not just intellectually, but spiritually. These last few years of my retirement have been so fulfilling and without a doubt the happiest of my life. I recognize that my days are numbered and I've still so much more to learn. What I particularly find fascinating is to learn more about Spiritism, but not in a silo, not on its own, but to connect the teaching with the world we live in, be it through the sciences, sociology, psychology, and other fields, searching not just to reinforce my belief, but also to discover aspects that can challenge or even refute those beliefs. So, that's the minute of the time here. So as I come to the end of this talk, I sincerely hope there's been some element that resonates with you, that you can incorporate into your building blocks to make your life more meaningful. And I'd like to end with a short message taken from a person I came across and I've come to admire so much. He's a guy called Shetty. He's an inspirational speaker. He's very young, I think he's 32. And I believe he's a really truly advanced spirit with ideas, reflections, and recommendations of life. Reflects so much of the Spiritist teachings. So, Shetty says the following. In the hope for money, in the hope for success, we end up chasing the wrong things and we make a mess. We end up with less than we started with, end up with more issues than we bargained for. Whilst climbing that ladder and that stairway, we forget why we started climbing in the first place. In the process of getting older, we forget the real goal of life. If you could make a little less and spend a little more time doing what you love, would that make you happier? Don't trade your happiness for what you think you need. Things can never make us happy because they are temporary and limited. Experiences can last forever. Too many people are working hard on things they don't love, to spend money they don't have on things they don't need, to impress people they don't like. When we create our identity around what we do, a career, a job, an occupation, we can never be happy because we're basing on something external. But when we create an identity on who we are and what we want to be and become, then anything is possible. And remember, we become successful by what we get, but we become happy by what we give. Don't get the two confused. Thank you very much for your patience, and I'll hand it back to Andrea. I don't know if you have any time or any questions.
Very good, David. Thank you. We do have one question for you today, and it's from Marcelo Paiva, and he says, David, thanks for your talk. Question, what part of studying and learning Spiritism brought the most enlightenment to your life? 1, the example of Jesus as a pure spirit. 2, the revelation that science aligns with faith so well. Or 3, the understanding that we are eternal and reincarnation is a divine example of mercy.
Well, thank you, Marcelo. Of course, Marcelo doesn't always ask those stimulating questions. I would say all the above, to be quite honest, all the above. They're all components. They've all influenced me, and I'm sure they've all influenced everyone. And actually, this topic came up in our gospel class this morning. We learn more from each other. That is why we're here. We're here to help each other. As I mentioned this morning, we're on a desert island on our own. How can we develop moral values? Because moral values are all interconnected with others and our relationship with others. So apart from the 3 aspects that are all, again, I think, important elements of learning, I think the need and the desire and the commitment to sharing and the studying in a group is so much more powerful than just reading on one's own. And that's how I'd answer that.
Very good. I'm going to David, can you use Spiritism as listless in the development of compassion towards others? If so,
Andrea, I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I can't hear that question.
Here, I'll put
okay.
There we go.
Compassion to development. Yeah. Very, very good question. Very good question. Compassion is definitely an essential component of our spiritual evolution. And, it's even been proven scientifically that by giving to others, there is something in our DNA that, in a way, putting it crudely, it gives us that buzz, right? There was a very interesting experiment done with actually an economics professor at Harvard who did an experiment about giving to people. He gave money to students in the morning and asked them to spend it on themselves or on others. And statistically proved that those people who spent it on others ended up lifting their happiness level from wherever it was to wherever, to a higher level. So compassion is a way to compassion and connection with others and charity. And as Kardec says, without charity, there's no salvation, right? So that is the key. That's what I'd say to that.
Thank you. The other question is very beautifully the impact that Spiritism has had in your life. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much, David, for being with us this morning. Great job. We remind everyone who is watching right now that every Sunday morning, 9:30, David is connected with a cup of coffee and asking you to join him on the study of the Gospel according to Spiritism. It's via Zoom, so you have the opportunity to discuss, to talk, to ask questions, and even offer your own point of view. So make sure that you guys join David. We'll post the information on our page, Facebook, after our talk today. So David, thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Very well. Before I do the final prayer, just to remind you guys, we did have an issue with our PayPal account, actually link a few weeks back, for a few months actually. And we just wanted to remind you guys that this has been fixed. So if you were contributing towards our center, please come back, because we will be needing your assistance even more as we start planning towards the reopening of our physical space. If you notice here on actually the side, we have the QR code where you can actually put in your camera, you kind of zoom in, and it actually opens and it goes directly to the website for donation. Or you can visit our website right here, Conscious Living Spiritist Group, clsg.us, where we have not only the schedule of all talks, we have the activities, we have our calendar that basically gives you the information on our activity at the center. So we invite you to log in or go into our website and also share with others. Thank you so much for your contribution always. Let's do our final prayer. Feeling grateful right now for the moment that we have had in the harmony of our own home, where we are able to study about this beautiful body of knowledge that we have in Spiritism, science, philosophy, and religion. So complete, such a complete body of knowledge that offers us so many answers to our endless questions about life, about our destiny, about our future, about those who are presently involved in our own lives' activities. We are so grateful for having this blessed, promised consoler. Thank you so much, dear Jesus and benevolent spirits, for encouraging us through the means of intuition to continue doing what is right, fulfilling our duties and obligations, and understanding truly what we are to do while we're here, which is the development of the self, which is actually acquiring new virtues. For we know that once we are done with this physical existence, we return home, where we are able to review all that we have done. We are so grateful for the knowledge of reincarnation, as our friend David so beautifully brought us. For we know that life continues and goes on, and all that we do today, all of the efforts, all of the rightful attitudes towards the challenges and difficulties never go to waste. Thank you for being with us and strengthening us during those times. And we are grateful once again for the blessed Conscious Living Spiritist Group, for this is the safe haven that we have every week to come and listen to this beautiful body of knowledge. Thank you, and so be it. So as a reminder, we do have the study of the Missionaries of the Light every other Wednesday. If you haven't yet clicked in to receive the notifications on our website, make sure you do, so that you never miss out on any of the activities that we have ongoing, whether in English or Portuguese. And we thank you so much for being with us this morning. God bless you and your family always. Have a great, great week.